This week, no excuses. Go Phish yourself. A services vendor helps you identify risk, the number one privileged identity management solution, according to some, and a huge blow to the endpoint security agent market. John and I will also talk about securing the SDLC, so stay tuned. This is a Security Weekly production. Brought to you by IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. IT Pro TV offers 1,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video training content. Course topics include certified cloud security professional, ethical hacking, cryptography, and VMware. You can stream their courses live or on demand to your mobile device, all for one low monthly subscription price and cancel at any time. Visit itprotv.com/hacknaked to upgrade your brain with the most popular IT certifications. Visit itpro.tv/enterprise security to upgrade your brain with the most popular IT certifications. Use the code ES30 for a free 7-day trial and save 30% off for life. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly. This is episode 9. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. On the lines via Skype, I have none other than John Strand. Welcome, John.
Hello, everybody. I'm dialing in from Denver, Colorado.
Yes, and you sound fantastic, John.
Yeah, who would have thought analog was the way to go?
We had that conversation. I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let's see. You are at risk from phishing attacks, so Duo Security decided to put together a free service that you can go phish yourself. Now, John, this is a market that we've talked about quite a bit in our lifetimes. I think it's a very flooded market. I do think it's an activity similar to penetration testing where you want to do it on your own and you want to hire another firm to do a third-party assessment. Is it your advice as well?
Not necessarily. I think that you want to hire a third-party firm just for the perspective of getting an opinion every once in a while. But as far as needing it for every single phishing assessment, absolutely not. I think you would be just fine doing a lot of this type of assessment on your own.
Now, is it useful to use free? I think there's free tools. There's probably really inexpensive tools, and there's more expensive tools. Like, where do you fall in the tools if I'm going to phish my own company?
I think PhishMe is, without question, the absolute best company to look at for general phishing and analysis. Mm-hmm. They're the biggest player. They've been doing it the longest. They have the best options. And also, if anything bad happens from a liability perspective, a lot of legal circles understand the company PhishMe. Mm-hmm. It's not like some type of podunk example.
Right.
And also, phishing, whenever you're talking about it, it is truly like I said, like a commodity. So you might as well go with something that's well known than trying to explain why you went with some kind of podunk weird vendor.
Right. So Risk Sense, which I kind of like the concept of these companies that consolidate all of your vulnerability scanning and penetration testing results. I think that it's kind of sad for our industry, to be honest with you, that these companies have to exist. I wish that we had better solutions for doing reporting and really getting down to the nitty-gritty of where am I most at risk. However, it's not a cut and dry thing. Like, I think some people just want to turn some knobs and be like, oh, that's what I got to go patch first. So Risk Sense has actually received an award for the fastest growing company, but they're a services company, John, which is weird. I wanted to get your take on that. So they do this vulnerability analysis and help you quantify risk, but they do it on a services basis. It's not a product.
Well,
it is a product, but you have to buy it as services.
It's basically a product that has a human being in the loop. And I'm trying to figure out what is the fundamental difference from this than a lot of other companies that, like, we do quarterly scanning and testing at Black Hills Information Security. You have ASV companies which are doing, ASV scanning, and according to the rules, that can't be completely automated. There has to be a human in the loop to go through and look at these results. So while I think that this is neat, I'm wondering what is actually fundamentally different about this than a lot of companies. I know Kevin Johnson at Secure Ideas does this as well. So what's the
So they
difference here?
take your network scanning data, your application scanning data, they take threat intelligence feeds, and they prioritize your vulnerability and help you manage risk. There's a lot of these. There was one, it's called Kenna now. What was it before? Risk.io.
Yep.
Same thing. Same thing.
Yeah. And I still, even when we're working with our customers and we're doing quarterly or monthly testing, we still very much work very closely with the customer. And in fact, in many situations, we can't just tell them what their risk actually is.
Right.
It requires a customer who understands their own company to be able to come up with a full risk formula. But no, I sometimes wonder just how much of this is marketing hype and how much is this actually like a real honest to God product or a service that is fundamentally different in the marketplace.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, John. I think you should buy a product that is going to accurately report on all your vulnerabilities and then have your own process for defining what risk means for you. But I mean, you can take output from all of your vulnerability scanners and threat intelligence feeds and do that yourself or buy a product to do it. I don't know that consulting is needed in that respect, maybe other than a day to help you prioritize your stuff, or like an Eins call with John or myself.
Yeah, just kind of going through it step by step. Yeah, I agree with that. So this is interesting. There may be more to it than what we actually see here. As we've said many times, sometimes it's difficult to cut between the marketing hype and what they're selling and what it actually is. There might be something really cool here. We just don't know.
Right.
I do believe pretty fundamentally that threat intelligence feeds being interacted with, kind of intersected with vulnerability scan results is a bit of I don't know, a kabuki theater type sales tactic. And the reason why is if we keep on going back to each of these reports that come out with all the breaches, almost all the breaches that are happening in organizations today, something like 95+% are spear phishing campaigns. And unfortunately, many people's vulnerability management program, they don't have the capability to actually detect that type of risk, because they're scanning for vulnerabilities in their Oracle database. They're scanning for vulnerabilities in their web server. It's almost like the vulnerability scanning in many organizations is completely disconnected with what the actual attack vectors look like. And if you don't understand what the attack vectors look like, then you kind of fall into these types of marketing plans. So I don't see where that tie together is really incredibly useful. I think threat intelligence feeds can be incredibly useful for identifying indicators of compromise, tactics and techniques and procedures, looking at what type of spear phishing campaigns are bad guys using, but actually saying, oh yeah, we have a lot of bad guys that are exploiting something in Oracle, and you're like, great Scott, we have that exact same vulnerability in our Oracle database. We were going to ignore it, but because there's a threat intelligence feed telling us it's important, we're now going to fix it. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, that's not typically the way it works. And I think threat intelligence is an overloaded term. So when I worked for Tenable, our integrations with threat intelligence were, I want to say, let's talk about twofold. So one, we would do IP address blacklist correlation. So if we were scanning a host, we'd check to see if that host target was on a blacklist. Then we'd also pull the active connections from the host, and we'd see if any hosts that were connected to it or it was connected to were on an IP blacklist.
And the other thing that Tenable did that I think is fundamentally different, and nobody else is really doing this, is that passive vulnerability, the passive vulnerability assessment scanning.
Yeah, that too.
And that absolutely would apply, because you're looking at client-side applications at that particular point, and if they say they're exploiting a specific vulnerability in Adobe, and you can pick that up from a passive vulnerability assessment scan, there's hella cool value in that.
Yeah.
But just an external unauthenticated scan, I don't think there's a lot that would come.
No, it would have to be authenticated to get the most usefulness out of it, because also they pull MD5 hashes of all the processes in memory, and they send those off to a huge antivirus farm, and then it comes back and tells you if any of your running processes have the signature of malware. Which, I mean, those, if you're going to do authenticated vulnerability scanning, those are great things to have to pluck out the low-hanging fruit. So that's where I like the integrations. But what you're talking about, John, is kind of tying that almost to like a hunt teaming thing, and that's where it starts to get disconnected for me too.
Yep, absolutely.
So Beyond Trust was named by Forrester as the #1 privileged identity management solution. Now, I don't. There's a lot of ways we can go with this, right? I just want our listeners to know that when you're choosing a solution, we talked a little bit about this last night on the Security Weekly show. When you're choosing a solution, choose the solution that's best for you, not one that other people say is the best one. And I think that a lot of us need to get better at evaluating products and making sure they're the right fit and testing them in the lab, which a lot of us don't have cycles for, but I think it's really super important. So there's a lot of choices for privileged identity management, but just because an analyst firm named one as number one, that shouldn't carry as much weight as I think it does today in the industry.
And, I'm not saying that this is what happens with Gartner, but I'm saying it happens a lot with these types of studies. The people that end up in those magic quadrants, the
Yeah.
people that end up in the industry leader ability to execute vision, they tend to be the people that are willing to pay the most money.
Yep.
Once again, not necessarily talking directly about Gartner, but we've seen this time and time and time again with vendor shootouts where you and I have sat around drinking, looking at them going, how the hell did this happen? This product is not this magical tool that these people are making it out to be. That being said, we're good friends with Mike Yaffe. We know that Beyond Trust is a very solid product.
Absolutely.
And that it's just one of those situations where I'm like, yeah, I could probably see that. They've been doing a fantastic job over the past few years.
Absolutely. This is a real hard blow to the endpoint security agent market, John.
What is this now?
So this is not good. This article from Sky High Networks says that they did a survey among IT professionals who have been involved in an agent deployment. 100% report that they have experienced at least one significant issue. The horror. Now they take it a step further, John. In the article, they talk about the endpoint agent challenges. Right, 27% say they experienced blue screens of death. 44% say there were device driver conflicts that break device functionality. 63.6%, John, show device performance due to slow device performance due to resource consumption is the number one complaint about agents. Testing required to validate agent compatibility was also on the list, as well as user privacy and liability on personal devices as the challenges for endpoint agents.
I can't believe it. I thought all endpoint agents were magic. I was just shocked. Okay, so here's the deal. This is Enterprise Security Weekly. We have people that do VC capital. We have people that are involved in money and a lot of the different products that are out there. Here's how you're going to make billions of dollars. If you can have a product that can actually integrate user behavioral analytics, can integrate network traffic analysis and finding threat anomaly detection on the network, and it can automatically integrate and it can do isolation of switch ports, dropping systems that are behaving odd into a completely segmented, isolated VLAN, kind of like a trapdoor feature, you're going to become very, very, very wealthy. And the reason why is because people are sick and tired of agents. Walking around the SANS class that I have here today, it is not uncommon for people to have 15 to 20 separate agents for all kinds of different things running on their computer systems. And they run incredibly slow. And if I talk about, hey, you need to put another agent on your computer, they lose their minds. They're like, no more, no more, no more. So if you can go agentless and you can actually do rapid isolation of suspect systems, you can drop them off the network due to network behavioral analytics or user behavioral analytics pulling logs off the domain controller or your SIM or whatever it is, you're going to become very wealthy because there's going to be a lot of people that say we can free up our workstations from all of these different agents and we can move it onto the network and doing analysis on logs, and you're going to do awesome. But I don't think that's easy. I don't think that's something that people can just snap their fingers and make it happen. But it is something that companies like Forescout would be very poised to do, possibly Cisco, but they can't really seem to get their act together for event log management. Microsoft absolutely could do it.
Absolutely.
But what are your thoughts on that, Paul?
Well, I think speaking of Cisco, we do have an article about that I do want to talk about, which kind of speaks to your point about Cisco getting their act together. In terms of endpoint agent versus network, I think a network thing with user behavioral analytics is the hot thing right now. I'm curious to see when the hot things become not hot things. Are they something that we all need and must have in our networks? So it remains to be seen, what cool technologies we're working on today. Last night we talked with Bob Stratton, who works for a company who's invested in over 35 security startups. So And
Ooh.
yes, John, we will be talking with him.
We will be talking with him at some point.
No, well, just for advice. He offered advice. No strings attached.
Oh,
advice.
that's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Advice is good.
Yeah.
Advice is good.
So this sounds really complicated. Tufin integrates with Cisco ACI to deliver application-centric security policy management. This is basically like a virtual network, virtual application suite. So there's a Tufin orchestration suite that integrates with Cisco application-centric infrastructure to deliver a unified security policy management across physical and public, private, hybrid clouds. The integration enables customers to centrally manage application security policies from behind, get this, John, a single pane of glass.
Wow. Pack it up, ladies and gentlemen. The silver bullet is here.
Single pane of glass. That's right.
So what we need to have is we need to have every week, out of all these things that we go through, the best marketing hype. Like whoever wrote this was genius.
Best marketing definitely goes to whoever wrote this press release.
Because they didn't mention APTs.
No.
They didn't mention a lot of the buzzwords. They're actively
elegant.
creating new buzzwords.
Very elegant.
I'm actually
Single pane of
crying.
glass. I love it.
You know what? I don't
just
even know
sounds
what
really
the hell that means.
Yeah, it sounds really complicated to me. You had all these virtual applications and virtual things and physical and cloud and hybrid cloud and management and policies. It was confusing to me. And if it's confusing to me to read a press release that's supposed to summarize it succinctly, then I fear for people who are using these products. Now, maybe you use these products. Maybe you use Cisco ACI or Tufin Orchestration Suite. If you do, email us. Tell us how great they are. We want to hear it, and we'll share it with our listeners. To me, it just sounds too complicated.
I don't have a clue what it is at all, but I want to buy it. That's how good this marketing write-up is.
Yeah. I mean, looking at things from behind a single pane of glass got me, too. So I got my checkbook in hand.
Right.
The last
Right
one
there. Right
comes from Squirrel, who does threat hunting stuff, put together what they call an open source threat hunting repository, which, when you look at it, is really just a collection of techniques that link to previously published blog posts about threat hunting.
Oh, well, still, that's cool. I mean,
It is
if you
cool.
want to get into threat hunting, and you know that I'm a complete sucker for companies that give things away for free. You and I are
Yes,
constantly arguing about this.
Yes.
And
I say give nothing
this
away for
company,
free, except our
you say, like,
podcast.
don't
I do, but I give
stop.
I give so much. I give all of our podcasts away for free. Isn't that enough, John?
Oh no, we give a lot away for free. So I just say kudos to these guys, because if you're doing marketing, if you're looking into a company that's trying to that you're trying to invest a product or a service into, look at what they're giving back to the community. If they're giving things back to the community, even if it's form of good blogs or podcasts or free open source tools, those are usually companies that are pretty solid. If you have a company that's like, oh, all of our technology is completely proprietary, we can't even show you a demo or even show you the tool without 4 non-disclosure agreements, yes, run. They're not worth it at all.
Absolutely.
So kudos to them. I think that this is great. If you're going to learn on hunt teaming and how to do it, this is the way to go.
I want to transition to securing the SDLC software development lifecycle. My 5 steps, I think, are a pretty good guide. I don't know. You tell me, John, and our listeners and
Go for
viewers. I think it's a pretty good guide to securing if you're writing software for your organization. Maybe you're an organization that's writing in-house software. Maybe you're an organization that's writing software because you're going to sell it. I think this 5-step process that I've culminated tips from across the internet, experts that are on the topic of software security. I've taken bits and pieces from them, and I've put them together into a list that I think is more comprehensive, because it doesn't get into, I mean, we can have the religious debates about where you should put security in your applications. I think there's five places that you need to do that today to have any chance of being a secure application. Number 1 is to do threat modeling. Not only do threat modeling, right, as the security person, but train your architects and developers and the security team in your threat modeling process and the threat modeling techniques that you want to employ. This will help so that bugs don't even get into the software, right? And I don't know how you feel about that one, John.
So you sent me this list earlier, and I want you to complete going through the list, but I love this list, and I hate it because I have to rewrite a presentation that I'm giving later on. in the next couple of weeks.
All
Is
right,
I
I'm gonna
offered that
keep
we
going.
would do free SDLC training 1 hour for anybody that listens to the show for their developers.
Yeah.
So carry forth.
Okay. So then, number 2, do static analysis. Train the developers to now fix the vulnerabilities as they go, right? So they've designed secure software so there's not huge logic flaws, and they've done the threat modeling. Now they're actually writing code, and when they're writing code, they have training and they have tools that help them do the static analysis to weed out vulnerabilities as they're coding. Maybe you've trained them so they know not to write the code a certain way, so there's cross-site scripting. Then they also know they have a tool for static analysis that says, hey, dummy, that's a buffer overflow, don't do that. So that's step 2, static analysis. Step 3 is dynamic analysis. Now, this is internal dynamic analysis, so scanning your web applications. Train your QA team to find those vulnerabilities. Yes, the security team is still going to do some assessments as well, but let's scan the application. Now the developers are finished with it. They're pushing code to QA. QA has the scanning tools that allow them to scan the application dynamically, which is awesome. Give them some training, give them some tools as well. Completely different group that tests the software from the group that writes the software, you would hope. If you go to a software company and they say, oh, our dev and QA are one group, run away, far away.
Yes.
Those should be 2 different groups. Okay, so number 4, somewhat controversial, do runtime application self-protection, or RASP. Train your software to run inside of your application server to help provide security, to both detect attacks and prevent attacks, and tell you where the vulnerabilities are in your code, all in one fell swoop. Great vendors out there. I think you should be looking at a RASP solution. A lot of articles out there are killing RASP, especially when it first came out. I think they've come around now. There are still some performance concerns, but I absolutely think that at least for your mission critical applications, you need to do this step and have this software on your application server. Then number 5, your final step, do conduct external third-party application penetration tests. Now, obviously, I'm somewhat biased. John owns and runs Black Hills Information Security. I am very much a partner in that, and pen tests are awesome, right? Because that's what they do at Black Hills Information Security. But you need to have a third party look at your application after you've done all of those steps, because they're going to find stuff that you didn't think about. I believe if you do those 5 steps, you stand the best chance of having a secure application. So, John,
And you know what? We can help with like the automated stuff and the threat intelligence stuff, or the threat modeling stuff. Just listening to the show, and then also like the free webcasts that we're going to give to developers for a number of different companies all around the country. I think that first step is the biggest one. And the reason why I think that step 1 is so critical is because if you don't understand what attacks actually look like, then you start chasing these unicorn hacks, and you start kind of superimposing Hollywood hacking on top of what you think your app is going to be attacked with. So, and what I mean by that is, if you don't know what they look like, you're going to be like chasing goblins constantly that aren't there. If you look at it, like 90+% of external web applications that get compromised are compromised through vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting and SQL injection, command injection vulnerabilities that are easily identified by free scanners like Z-Attack Proxy. You know, if you know that that's what most of these attacks lie into, and you could take that low-hanging fruit off the table, all of a sudden your app becomes far more secure compared to a lot of competitors or a lot of other organizations. But you have to know what the bad guys are doing. You cannot expect to do computer security, period, if you do not understand what the bad guys are capable of and what they are actively doing.
Yeah, and so in this threat modeling, in my example, John, is very much removed from any kind of threat intelligence or understanding what the bad guys are doing now. What I mean by threat intelligence is the popular framework. So Stride, what is it? Dread? Is it Dread?
Dread is the other. Yep.
Stride, Dread, and Trike, which is Microsoft's, is Trike, which walk the developer basically through how to, when they're constructing the application, quantify the what's going to happen in the application. So in other words, how likely is it to be exploited this way? How likely is it to be discovered? And Stride talks about spoofing identity, tampering with data, information disclosure, all those things. So you're basically doing a pen test before any code gets written, so that when it does get written, you're taking into account all of these potential attack vectors. It's kind of like when you're designing the application and they're like, well, yeah, the sessions are going to be, not unique for every user, to use the most simplistic example. Like every user will have the same access token, and it's totally fine in this case. And you have to stand up and say, no, that's a bad idea. So you're going through all of those exercises in the various threat modeling frameworks for your application. And the different frameworks work better with a specific language. So like Trike works great with Microsoft products. There's a lot of free open source threat modeling. There's one like written in JavaScript that I think Mozilla wrote that you can just go use, and it helps you do a threat model for your application.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's good stuff. So you're going to do some webcasts on this topic?
Yep, I put it out in the last show that we had, and I was talking about basically training developers on how to use free and open source security tools like Zetattack Proxy and Nikto against their code base for web applications. And we honestly believe that if companies just do that one simple thing, takes that low-hanging fruit off the table, and it doesn't apply. Now, this is very different. You got web applications, right? You're talking about full application stacks. You got executables, you got programs, you got architectures. We're just talking about web applications. We're going to do a 1-hour webcast either next week or the week after, where we're going to get a whole bunch of developers from a number of different companies and basically say, hey, here's the things that you can do that'll make your pen tester cry. They show up and they expect to just run an automated scanner and document 150 cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. That's not going to happen because we believe in education. I think we spend too much time in the echo chamber, Paul, of security, like all the security people sitting around sniffing each other's farts. And this is really kind of our effort to get out and try to bring those application developers to the table and kind of put an olive branch on the table.
Well, we've got a name for this episode. It is now called Sniffing Each Other's Farts. That is Enterprise Security Weekly, episode 8. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.